97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
I love coaching this football team. I love coaching those players in there.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And brought to you locally by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. You heard Doug Pederson in the open. I love coaching this football team. Does he? Or is he about ready to say, you know what? I don't want to coach this football team anymore. He spoke today. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. Their latest one dropped this morning. They go in the film room on this offense, defense, a source tape breakdown of what happened in this loss to the New York Football Giants. Let's bring him in. Geoff Mosher at Geoff Mosher NFL from InsideTheBirds.com here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Moshe?
Hey, Mike, what's going on?
Oh, man, thank God the draft is tonight. Thank God the draft is tonight. The only football we're talking today is with you, brother. 4 o'clock, football at 4. This team has got us fatigued, and they just had a bye.
It's funny. I just mentioned that to Josh in the, while we were waiting to bring you on. That this is like a reprieve, the NBA draft. It's a reprieve from Eagles talk, and yet we just had the bye week. We should all feel fresh and energized, but no.
No. You write at Inside the Birds for the podcast this morning about a dysfunctional offense. So let's start with that. Broads and I have gone back and forth this week about who's more to blame, and I think there's a lot of equal blame to go here. But one question we kind of asked was, Pederson or Wentz, who's more fixable in this situation here? When you talk about a dysfunctional offense, you get a source tape breakdown here. What are people saying when they look at this Eagles offense about the cosmetic issues they're having?
That it doesn't look that different than it has for the past few years. There's not a whole lot of creativity. There was a lot of pre-snap motion against Dallas. It disappeared amazingly into the bye week and out. You have a couple of weeks to prepare, and you go line it up against the Giants, and you don't really do anything out of the ordinary to spice up your offense that had been lagging all first half. Blocking up front, obviously an issue at times. Opeta had to play left guard. Carson taking too many hits. And Carson himself not seeing a clear picture, not trusting throws, not trusting his eyes, not making the connection on passing plays that the first or the first progression or the predetermined throw isn't there. What happens? Well, the second progression or second read or third read not being made crisp, not being made clear. So you have a big cauldron of things that are going on with this offense right now, and it's unfortunate because it's all just kind of a perfect storm that has led to the Eagles. I believe they have the 4th or 5th worst scoring offense right now in the NFL. It's been pretty bad.
All right. So one of the things that we've kind of gone back and forth on, I agree that Pederson can do a better job. I think he has not done a very good job, particularly with coaching Carson Wentz. But my point has been, if I had to choose right now between the two, Pederson's offense works. It's not working because the quarterback is playing so poorly. These are very routine plays that are there to be made and are not being made. Now, Broads would say, well, get him out of the pocket. Sure, okay. But if I'm at the point where the only play my quarterback can run is getting him out of the pocket, don't I have a problem with the quarterback?
Yeah, I feel like getting Carson out of the quarterback is out of the pocket, on the rollouts, on the play actions is something Doug Pederson can do more. But it's not something that you can do every other snap and say, well, that's what he's best at. Eventually, you need your quarterback to be able to make good reads and inside the pocket and good throws and accurate throws. And that's been an issue for Carson Wentz. It certainly was against the Giants. A lot of his throws were high. A lot of his throws, not that I'm making excuses, but it's just been a reality all year long. A lot of the times he's making a throw and he's got an offensive lineman getting backed up into his face. So hopefully Isaac Seumalo's return can help that a little bit. It's an interesting question you ask about, Doug Pederson, Carson Wentz, can one fix the other, so to speak? And I would say this, though, about Doug. I think that or about Carson. You said Doug Pederson's offenses worked before, and that is absolutely true. But a good offense can get stale even, and people can catch on to it. I guess the question is, can Doug's offense work with Carson and his the way Carson plays the game, and especially the way he's playing it right now? Can Doug's offense work for a guy who is kind of locked on to one read, who isn't getting rid of the ball quickly? You know, can what Doug has done in the past still fit what Carson Wentz is doing right now? Because I don't know that anybody's been able to get Carson Wentz to tighten it up and play like he was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and one of my counterpoints is if a quarterback can make those simple throws, it will look better. But what is better? If it's a competent offense, okay, is that just an average offense in the NFL, which isn't the worst case scenario, but it's not great either. There's a lot that Doug Pederson can do, and I just felt that this game, like you can look at games and say, well, you lost it because you had a turnover here. You lost it because your special teams did this. When I look at this game, I felt it was lost in the game plan. It was lost in the blueprint. You had 2 weeks to game plan, and when your team is on third downs 0 for 9, that's not just a Carson Wentz issue. That's also a head coach problem. 11 penalties. When you see that your team and your quarterback works better with up-tempo, and then you decide not to utilize that. When you throw Jalen Hurts in there and makes it 3rd and 11, and it just gets ugly. No need for him at that moment. The package as a whole with Jalen Hurts. I just felt that was a problem in the meeting rooms, and that's where they lost the game from the head coach.
Yeah, I can't argue that Doug Pederson didn't do a good job. I agree with you on that, Hunter. Again, I thought some of the things that you saw against Dallas, even though they did not score a lot of points against Dallas, some of the motion, not just jet motion, but orbit motion, the touchdown to Rager came when he was kind of motioned out of the backfield in as a receiver. There wasn't a whole lot of that, if any, against the Giants, and that was very surprising to me. And I really don't know why. And I agree. I think his usage of Jalen Hurts all year long has been very kind of scattered and happenstance. We'll throw him in here and have him do his own read yet again. They're not using Jalen Hurts creatively at all. In fact, it almost feels like they're force feeding him onto the field just to do it because. So there's not a whole lot of method to the madness. So I agree with that. Some of the stuff, though, I don't think Doug – I don't think it's on Doug. There were about 3 or 4 really bad snaps. Carson Wentz threw a few passes over the guys' heads, one to Goddard, one to Fulgham, one to Rager. So, I mean, like I said, it's a perfect storm. If people are arguing, like who's worse, Carson Wentz over or Doug Pederson, it's almost a moot argument, in my opinion. I think that both of these guys are really failing the team right now for different reasons, but the bottom line is that both of them aren't doing their best to help this team get back together.
Yeah, I think Doug has done a poor job, particularly with Carson, that he can help Carson more. I guess the point I'm making is I don't think Doug is a bad coach, though. In other words, this offense has been about the same for 4 years. They score about the same. They had about the same passing yards per game, the same rushing yards per game. This year they don't. Why? Because the quarterback's completing 58% of his passes. If he's completing, heck, Jeff, 60% is horrible. But if he's at 60, this team might be in a different spot. So it's like the play he was asked about today, Pederson, which I don't understand his answer. It's like he was protecting Wentz and throwing his receivers under the bus. But it appears that the receivers ran the right play. Wentz just didn't throw the ball. And that's a difference of that's a first down. If he just completes that pass, it's a routine throw that if he just completes it, it's a first down. You get a new set of downs. It's the first down play where he's got Sanders out of the backfield.
I know the play that you're talking about. And it was weird because I think it was Baldy, right, who tweeted it out earlier this week and showed the Carson double hitched on it. But even when you're watching it, it does not look like the cleanest rub route you've ever seen. In fact, it looks like it was not a very clean rub route. So maybe the pass could have been completed, but you've seen a lot better type of rub routes from the Eagles themselves, not just from other. I know Doug today talked about the Steelers and how they do it, but it did look like – and if you're Carson and you're struggling and everybody's on your back about throwing interceptions, that's the perfect scenario to throw an interception. If you throw that ball off timing, or if your receiver isn't in the right spot to get it, or if the rub doesn't work and the corner was able to keep pace like James Bradbury was able to do. So I think Doug was being fair there and saying, look, I mean, if we executed that from a receiver standpoint properly, then our quarterback has a better chance to make that throw.
Right.
And I think that's fair.
Yeah.
On that one, I think it's fair.
Yeah, now there's another play where I think this is a microcosm of the whole problem that this offense has. We might not like the offense. Maybe it's not the most creative thing in the world. But there's the play where the linebacker drops into coverage on Fulgham, and then Sanders comes out of the backfield. Sanders is open on 1st and 10. If he catches the pass and gets hit right away, well, it's 2nd and 5. Well, because the throw skips up to him, he can't catch the ball, and now it's back to 2nd and 10. It's that routine throw that changes almost the timing and the rhythm and everything. And that routine throw is missed way too often for my liking. And that's a big problem to me, where the offense doesn't have to be Sean McVay, jet sweeping, moving guys. If you just complete the routine stuff, it looks a lot different.
If you go back to last year, I think you really started to see this. I think it was the Miami game that they lost, where there were a couple of throws where Carson just threw the ball like 10 miles over the head of Miles Sanders in the flat wide open. And you saw that those mechanical breakdowns and the really high throws, which he's done throughout his career. But I feel like last year you started to see them more consistently week after week after week. And then December came along, and for whatever reason, he was able to curtail them and play really smart football and lead the team into the playoffs. And I've used last December as a counter argument to those who say, see what happens when you make Carson a game manager. He doesn't throw any picks. He doesn't fumble the ball, and you get no cowboy action. No, you get no heroics out of him either. And I say, no. It doesn't work that way. You don't start excusing interceptions and fumbles because the guy will make some really great splashy plays in the 3rd and 4th quarter. The bottom line is, when he was doing that, you were losing. Now he didn't do it this game. You're still losing. What you need is Carson Wentz to play smart football and make really good throws, because that's what top 10 quarterbacks should do. So he's either no longer a top 10 quarterback and never will be, and we're probably going to find out a lot more about that over the next 5, 6, 7 weeks, or he's going to snap out of it like he did last December. And then the coaching staff has to figure out a way to say, all right, now that we've got him back out of it, how do we make sure he doesn't stop going back into it?
When looking at this offense, what did you hear and see in film about Fulgham's game? Because obviously it was a quieter day.
Yeah, they did move him around a little bit, as they have done. I think the Giants did clearly pay attention, and Bradbury's been a good quarterback all year. Carson tried to hit him on a few of them and missed, of course. But I thought they could have done it. I think they need to kind of advance with him, right? They can't just throw him out there every week and say, you're Travis Fulgham now, you're our best receiver, you're one of the better receivers in the NFL, go do your thing. I think for a kid that young, who's never experienced this level of success before, having it all come to him so quickly, and who's now the center of attention for the opposing defense, what you have to do is not just move him around, but you've got to make a concerted effort to get the ball to him. And you may have to scheme up some easy crossers, or just put the ball in his hands in easy ways. Like they do it with Greg Ward, interestingly enough. I think they need to do it also with Travis Fulgham, just to keep the defense on its toes and just to make sure that Fulgham himself is kind of really into the game and feeling the flow of it. That is where I look at Doug and I say, yes, Mike, you're right, that his offense has worked before, and that within every play call, there are guys who will get open or should get open. But I do think it's on Doug, again, when the defense has studied you, especially within the division, for years upon years, and kind of know what you do, it's up to you to not just say, hey, it's worked before. It's up to you to kind of come up with some new schemes, some different things that people haven't seen, to get your best players the ball in the hands in open space. And I don't think they did that enough for Travis, and I don't think they did that enough for Jalen Reagor. A lot of their routes, especially on 3rd down, were vertical type routes. And you saw Carson tried to put the ball down the field, and a lot of times he didn't connect. But you didn't see a lot of those intermediary routes, like shallow crosses and things. And certainly, like I said, no motion, nothing other than maybe a little quick shuttle pass to Greg Ward that would suggest kind of like getting the offense in a good flow and showing the defense something different. It was kind of laughable that Doug said in his press conference that he was in a good rhythm and flow with his play calling.
Well, it's funny. There was a play that I actually liked, and unfortunately, Kelsey snapped it down at Wentz's ankles is they were running a play that the Chiefs use a lot, and it's Rieger's out. He's got 2 blockers in front of him, and unfortunately the snap's low. They can't get that play off. I thought they did a good job in the run game and designed some good runs. It feels like they do a good job up front there. So there's something to kind of work with here. I think, unfortunately, I think you need your quarterback to play better in the routine plays, and then that will open some things up in these rollouts and get him moving, and then that's how you get back. But you got to hit these routine plays to kind of get that going. And unfortunately, I think another problem for Carson, to not throw him under the bus, is, as you mentioned, well, the left guard is getting blasted into his face. He's got new receivers almost every single week. Like, how much that all factors in. And you just wonder how much the organization is taking into account of, man, he's had a lot of injury issues up front and at the receiver position since 2017.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they look at that, but I mean,
and how much do they care?
Yeah, I think it's a bottom line business. They know that a lot of quarterbacks around the league get hit, and it's just, offensive line play has been bad across the board in the NFL for a while. I think the bigger question when you're talking about looking at the team from maybe 30,000 above is Jeffrey Lurie enabled, and that's being light, enabled a coaching change in the offseason. And then the influx of newer coaches, and they were all supposed to bring these great ideas to the offense. And, obviously you spend money, you bring in all these extra coaches, and you expect some kind of results from that. I can't imagine right now that Jeffrey Lurie is very happy seeing this offense stumble and this quarterback regress when he just brought in 3 new guys in the offseason. They oversaw the promotion of Press Taylor to passing game coordinator. I mean, this is why I say it's such a shared responsibility. Jeffrey was one of the people on the forefront of wanting new ideas and wanting the old coaches gone. So when you do that and then you bring in these new guys and nothing happens, maybe you didn't make the right moves. Maybe your assessment of what was going on was not correct at the time. So as always, it starts from the top.
Do you think it's possible that we're overvaluing some of the weapons that are here? Like, for example, Greg Ward, he's a nice player, but he's like a slot receiver. He's not game-changing. Fulgham, he's had some exciting games, but, what is he really? Rager needs to be schemed open. He's not a guy that's just going to flat-out beat you. Dallas Goedert, look, he has success when Zach Ertz is out there. When he's tight end 1, it seems like Rodgers is the one getting the football. Is there something to be said about that? Like, were we just overvaluing what weapons were out there throughout the last couple of weeks or so?
That's a really difficult question to answer. I mean, my inclination is to say no, but you do make some very good points. I mean, I don't think Dallas Goedert is Zach Ertz dependent. That's just me. I think he's a good player.
That's fair.
I thought he had a chance to make some plays in that game against the Giants, and he was missed a couple of times and got open a couple of times, and the ball didn't see him. I think he's fine. I don't think Rager is a player that needs to be schemed open. He's got the speed to beat people in one-on-one man coverage. Now, the Giants play a ton of zone, and they play a ton of 2 deep. And so your point is valid that he's a rookie. He's only played, I think, 4 games, but he was hurt early in the second game that he played. So really like 3 games. And without all the offseason, I mean, he's got so much to learn about route running and technique and going through, getting separation at the top of his stem and everything like that. And he's got a rapport that he's got to develop with Carson. So I would agree with your point that just because your first-round pick is out there and possesses all these fantastic attributes does not necessarily mean it's going to be wonderful connections, over and over and over again. It's because he's missed so much time. And yes, Fulgham is kind of a fly-by-night surprise who's been a pleasant surprise, and I believe he's legit. But, if you give me the chance to put like Keenan Allen there instead, of course I'm going to take someone like that or Devontae Adams. But I do think Miles Sanders, look, Goddard's real. Miles Sanders is real. Greg Ward is a slot receiver, but he helps you move the chains. And I think they have enough. I get what you're saying, that you look at some of the other offenses with take the Rams, for example. You've got 2 wide receivers there in Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp that probably aren't going to beat anybody in a foot race, but they are technicians out route running. I mean, these guys could put on a clinic on route running. And I think that that's something that you don't have yet with this wide receiver core, right? You've got young guys who are just kind of getting their feet under them. They're not technicians yet. They've shown glimpses at times, and Fulgham has surprised me with how good of a route runner he is for being a young guy. But they've got a lot to learn, and they will get better. But it's very difficult right now for Carson to have to kind of deal with this raw inexperienceness, right? as they're trying to win games and climb out of a hole. I do think that's fair, and I would suspect that when Zach Ertz comes back, as long as he's, kind of his head's in the game and everything, and you have Ertz and Goddard out there and Miles Sanders, those three should help them. They should score points. I don't want to say that excuse everything. They should have enough to score some points, and they're going to need to beat some of these teams that they got coming up here in November and December.
Now, if you're completing 58%, it's tough to score that way, man.
It is. It definitely is. You're going to have to score points by completing more passes. I agree.
Defense, real fast. I know it's the offense has consumed a lot of us all week long, but you mentioned on Inside the Birds, dysfunctional offense, undisciplined defense. What are some of the things you're hearing about the breakdowns in the defense against the Giants?
Well, I mean, it's just it's seemingly unacceptable, and even Jim Schwartz admitted it yesterday that they would give up a touchdown to Daniel Jones on a zone read that was identical to the one they gave up a couple of weeks ago. And it starts with the defensive ends crashing at the mesh point instead of playing the potential of the run, especially when you've seen it before. And then I saw it myself, and Adam talked about it too from his sources on the podcast. The linebackers are very up and down, and which is what you would expect from Alex Singleton and T.J. Edwards. Or sometimes they do a really good job of, say, right prior to the snap, kind of getting themselves going downhill so that they're hitting the line of scrimmage right as the ball carrier is there. But there are other times, and that touchdown was an example, where they really struggle to get off blocks, or a tight end can get up on them in the second level and create some space. I think Alfred Morris was the one who had a 17-yard run up the middle early in the game, first or second quarter, and you just saw Singleton couldn't get off the block from – it was either a tight end or a pulling guard. There were a couple of different situations. But, like, these guys, they've stabilized the defense a little bit compared to what was going on when Nate Gary was out there from a coverage standpoint, and they'll make some plays against the run, but go watch teams that have good linebackers on them, and you'll notice the difference about how, like a Patrick Queen, right? You'll just notice how much different they are. They can get off those blocks. They can be physical at the point of attack, and they just have the instincts to maybe even get around offensive linemen and get to the ball. So, and that's just something that this unit lacks.
Good linebackers? What are those?
Yeah, I know. It's been a long time. It's been a while.
All right, we'll leave you with this. And you'll be back Friday. We'll talk more about this particular matchup. But last year, I remember doing a show, and you and I went at each other about how bad the loss was to the Dolphins, and I said, whatever, I don't care. You get past it and move on. Part of my reasoning there was I saw them play better earlier in the year. They had beaten the Packers. They had won other games. They just had a bad week against the Dolphins. Okay, I have not seen that. There has been nothing to make me feel like they can get back to that level of beating the Packers. So would it surprise you more if they went to Cleveland, played a solid game and won, or got blown out?
Which one would surprise me more? Oh man, that is a tough question, Mike, because they are so unpredictable. But
they've been pretty predictable. They've been very predictable. They sucked every game.
That's fair. That's fair.
This is the most predictable team I've ever covered. They're horrible every week. But there's a part of me that feels like the adversity, week 11, we're getting deep in the year, and here they come when everybody's questioning them. The quarterback needs to go. The coach stinks, and they win 38-7.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get blown out, because I don't think Cleveland just has enough firepower to really, light it up on them. They have great running backs, I think, and a good tight end. That's going to be a very difficult matchup for the Eagles defense. So I don't see a blowout. So I probably would say an Eagles win is more likelier than getting blown out. But I'm not sure either of those two are more likely than just a narrow Eagles loss.
All right, we'll get your pick and break down this game a little bit more. Inside the Birds drops Friday morning at 6 a.m. is the next edition, and they'll have the Inside the Birds pregame show starting at 10 a.m. on Sunday on all the social media platforms. Geoff Mosher, of course, is back on Friday. Adam Kaplan from InsideTheBirds.com will be with us tomorrow. Jeff, take care, pal.
You too, guys. Have a great one.
All right, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Great conversation with Geoff Mosher